Welcome, everybody. I hope you're all learning about various new concepts and use cases from these wonderful talks presented by all of us. I will be talking about an interesting concept that will ensure that your organization's FinOps and security team's objectives about controlling cost and securing workloads are continuously addressed. Before I get started, I want to ask all of you a question. So, go back to the time when you're working on day to day working on Terraform. Trying to provision resources for specific use cases. So, say you're working on a use case that provisioned 2025 cloud resources, and you had this requirement to test out a particular property of a resource. But you did not want to impact the existing setup. It could take a long time, things like that. So instead of provisioning and testing the property in the original use case or the original, IAC stack, I usually create a new folder or a repository and then deploy the cloud resources from that repository to test out the functionality. Once I've tested the resource with the correct property values or other dependent resources, I make appropriate changes to the original stack. This is one use case. Now, let's think of another use case. Maybe you had to build up an entire infrastructure stack for a demo, for a separate team to try out a certain concept. Say, for example, your product team comes and says they wanted to test out a new feature that is still in development, but they didn't want to work on the dev environment or the test environment because maybe there are other developers, or the environment is getting continuously updated. So they said, well, we want a separate environment where we could go and test this out. And the understanding was that once the product team has verified, or whichever team that required that environment, they verified the environment would be decommissioned so that there are no unnecessary costs. I believe we've all been in similar situations, and there's nothing wrong in trying that out. That is one of the factors that makes IAC so likable. The ability to build and decommission an environment or a stack with a few commands. Now, in such a situation, do you remember to decommission or delete the resource in the use case once the purpose was fulfilled? I've been in such situations, and let me tell you how creating ephemeral workspaces, saved the day for me. Creating these resources in ephemeral workspaces ensured that I had a proactive solution in place rather than having to remember to decommission the cloud resources. And while we are at it, my name is Saurav Kundu. I am a DevOps consultant here at AWS. In my role, along with provisioning AWS cloud resources, I must also ensure that cloud cost and security vulnerabilities are never compromised. And hence, it is important for me to identify mechanisms to control the cost and not overspend. And at the same time, ensure that no misconfigured cloud resources can be exploited by a bad actor. I'm also a HashiCorp ambassador for the last 3 years in a row, and I've got 2 HashiCorp certifications and several AWS and Azure certifications. I have several years of experience working with Terraform for enterprise customers, developing their AWS infrastructure using CI/CD pipelines with Terraform. I think this was probably in the second half of 2024 when HashiCorp broadcasted 4 webinars, spanned by maybe a week or 2 apart. They were really fantastic webinars. And I have the QR code for them. I would highly recommend that you go and take a look at it. Maybe after the HashiTalk is done, you'll derive a lot of value from there. And they're not too long. Maybe 30 minutes, 30 minutes each. Yeah. These webinars are on how organizations ended up overspending a third of their cloud spend that could have been prevented. So, these webinars talk about, what are organizations doing so that they so that they can bring that cost down. And these use cases are similar to the ones that we just talked about, right? These one-off POCs or demos, they don't seem to be expensive individually, but over time, they all add up. And that is not just about cost. Say certain resources were configured incorrectly. They can enable unauthorized access. You're not only incurring cost, but you also could have overlooked security that could expose your organization to potential attacks if they're not corrected. Now, as per a 2023 IBM report, misconfigured resources also enabled bad actors to exploit those configurations, which can cost upward of a few millions to remediate. Today in my talk, I will show you how we can take control of our cloud spend and security, and also have the capability to build fast by utilizing the ephemeral workspace feature in HCP Terraform. So let's think about the word. What does ephemeral mean? It means something that is short-lived and something that is fleeting or transient. It exists for a brief period of time. Let's focus on the word ephemeral. It means something that is short-lived or is temporary, something that is transient. It's only for a short, duration. And in our case, that is what we need. We need a workspace that is short-lived, that is ephemeral, which means that we need a workspace now, what is a workspace? A workspace is a virtual concept that stores the state file of the provisioned cloud resources. So if the workspace is ephemeral, it means that the state file stored in the workspace won't last that long, which means that the resources won't last that long. And that is what we need. We need a workspace with an end date, or a configuration setting. When met, it destroys the workspace. I mentioned that ephemeral workspaces are available in HCP Terraform. Just so that we are on the same page, HCP Terraform is a managed service with enhanced features for collaboration, security, and state management. And that's hosted by the HashiCorp in the cloud. The community edition of Terraform is the open source version for self-managed infrastructure with basic Terraform features. If you're wondering how is HCP Terraform different than the community edition Terraform, here are some key features. So manage Terraform execution. So it removes the need for the user to set up and maintain the Terraform environment manually. You've also got the remote state management, which means that HCP Terraform will store the state file securely and prevent conflict or loss of state data. You also have collaboration where multiple teams can work together with role-based access control and versioning. And finally, HCP Terraform provides secure handling of sensitive variables and the state file. Where would you find ephemeral workspaces property? So inside your HCP Terraform page, you could navigate to the workspace, then into the settings, and then into the destruction and deletion option. That's far bottom of the left pane. Now, as you can see, there are two configuration options. One of them is to destroy at a specific time, and the other one is to destroy if inactive. So the first one allows the cloud engineering team to select a specific time to trigger a destroy action. And the second one, the one that I've selected, destroys if there's no activity on the stack. So there's no Terraform action such as plan or apply. If nothing of that sort happens, the state file in the workspace will be destroyed in an hour. So in the last couple of slides, we learned about managed service from HashiCorp, and we learned about the auto destroy feature. Now you must be wondering, how does that help organizations, right? How does it help them control cost and secure the workloads? And if you think about this, by having an end date to the workspace, the cloud engineering team ensures that the resources in the workspace will be auto-deleted by the date and time specified. So it is a proactive solution. I don't have to remember to destroy the workspace or wait for a specific product team to come back and say, hey, we're good with the environment, you can destroy it. I'm no longer waiting on anybody. While provisioning the resource, I am ensuring that I have addressed for how long that stack is going to last. Now, I will now bring up HCP Terraform console and show you that feature. So this is the workspace workspace page on HCP Terraform. You can see inside an org, I've got a workspace and then the one for HashiCorp 2025. This is the workspace property. I have associated this workspace with a version control, which is the GitHub repository that I have, which is Conduso HashiCorp 2025. If you go all the way to the bottom of the options, if you go to destruction deletion, you'd see that this is where you could specify that either you could destroy at a specific time or you could destroy if it's inactive, right? Now, if I come back, I've got a run that is waiting for me to approve. Once this is approved, okay, let's say this looks good. It's good to me. And then I'll do a confirm plan. This is going to start applying and provisioning the resources. Once these resources are provisioned, we'll start seeing that there will be a state file that would be available inside the workspace. Okay. So here's the latest run. Okay, fantastic. Let's look at this. Good. So let's go to the settings and let's look at deletion and destruction. So now we see that this resource would get deleted at this time if there are no further actions on that stack. I will pause the video and then I will resume it in a bit, in an hour, so that we could see that these resources would start getting destroyed, and that's going to appear as a run option. So if you go into the runs, we will see another. So as of now, you see there's this run which says that this was as part of pull request that got merged. We'll see another run that would be triggered to destroy the stack, because we are not going to make any changes to that stack from now until the next hour. So I'll pause the video now and then I'll get back once this is all. We are very close to the end of the hour. Okay, so we are almost at time now, and I will show you. Here's the run, the one that we had when the pull request was merged, and here's the setting with the destruction deletion option. And you see this would be we've got maybe a minute left. Quickly, let's go to the resource that was provisioned. If you see, this is the VPC that was created. It's 9244. I hope I have time to quickly show this to you. If I go to the resource that was provisioned, let's go to the run, and let me pull this up. Here's the client, and here's the VPC ID, 9244, right? So we've got VPC. This VPC was created using HCP Terraform, and we will start seeing that this workspace would start getting destroyed. I mean, the state file in the workspace would start getting destroyed. Okay, if you see, the options have changed here, right? It no longer says it's going to delete at 11:08. That's because the trigger has started. So if you check this run, this was triggered via an API. It was not part of any of version control change. And so this is where we are seeing that an AWS cloud resource or a set of resources that were provisioned using HCP Terraform that had ephemeral workspaces set to true. And when I say it's set to true, what I mean is it had the deletion destruction option of specific time, like you saw here, right? So if you remember, it told us at what time that resource deprovisioning would start. We're not seeing that option anymore, which means that a pipeline to deprovision those resources already started. Right? Now, if I go back to my AWS console over here and refresh this, we'll start seeing that the VPC and all associated resources would be destroyed. Let's go back to the, so here's the, okay, so the apply is queued, and I really did not have to approve anything. I didn't have to come here and say, like, if you remember, right, earlier when we did the deployment, when we provisioned the resource, I had to come and say, yeah, this looks good to me. I'll go ahead and deploy. I didn't have to do it here. So this is a pretty, hands-off process wherein I really do not, once I've said that I want these resources gone at the end of the hour, HCP Terraform took care of it. It didn't wait for me to say, okay, you approved the destruction, which is to say that once you have set the configurations in the workspace, that is all that you have to do. If I go back to the VPC, let's see if I still see this. There you go. It's gone, right? So what we've seen over here is the provisioning of the resource. Now, say, for example, a specific team, or say, for example, I was provisioning not a VPC, but maybe some other resource that I was testing out. And I said, okay, I'm going to need 3 hours to test this out. And at the end of these 3 hours, or at the end of a specific date, if there are no changes to the state file, please destroy the state file in the workspace. Now, when the state file is destroyed, we're talking about the contents of the state file, which would imply that the cloud resources will be destroyed. So that was the demo, and I hope that helped you understand how ephemeral workspaces addresses managing cloud spend. I believe that you would now want to learn more, so I've got a few links. The first one is to a HashiCorp blog on ephemeral workspaces. Let's take a look. It talks about the benefits of the features and tactically how to enable ephemeral workspaces, which is here. Yeah. So this is the first blog where they talk about the Terraform ephemeral workspaces and the benefits associated with that. And at a high level, they show you how to enable the destruction and deletion option. We've already seen that. Now, the second link is to my GitHub repository, where you would learn about what is the code that you would require to test out the concept. And the third one is the 4-part webinar that I was talking about on how to optimize cloud spend on HCP Terraform, right, which is here. So there are 4 parts. Part 1, which is about optimizing the cloud spend with HCP Terraform, preventing avoidable cloud waste, and how to use Terraform to help you with cloud overspend, and addressing the provisioning skill gap effect. We have spoken about the tactical side of ephemeral resources, right? And how it is enabled. You start with creating an HCP Terraform organization, then you create a project inside that organization, then you create a workspace inside the project and associate a VCS, a version control system, such as GitHub repository. And then finally, you enable the ephemeral workspace by setting the destruction and deletion option. Now, this webinar, this 4-part webinar, discusses the why and the what part of the question. So in part 1, they explore why organizations often overspend on cloud services and how to address this by automating the cloud provisioning and compliance and management using Terraform, which is this one. Then they also cover the value of building a platform team and how adopting a cloud operating model can lead to more effective cloud cost management. In part two, they focus on the adoption phase of your cloud journey, where many organizations struggle with visibility and provisioning, often leading to unnecessary spending. The presenter shows you how Terraform helps streamline this phase, offering solutions like infrastructure as code, version control to keep costs in check. Part three, they dive into the standardization phase, where things can get tricky when it comes to managing cloud costs and compliance. Here, they introduce policy as code to enforce best practices and use Terraform's capability to set automated guardrails, reusable modules, and drift detection to ensure secure, compliant cloud environments. Finally, part four, they address the cloud skill gap and how it can contribute to cloud waste, especially during the scaling phase. They show you how Terraform helps bridge this gap with no-code provisioning, continuous validation, and ephemeral workspaces, making it easier for your teams to scale effectively without over-provisioning or wasting resources. And we saw that pretty in detail in this demo. By the end of the series, you'll have a deeper understanding of how to optimize cloud spend at every stage of your cloud journey, right from adoption to scaling, using Terraform as a powerful tool to automate and enforce best practices. Now, if you're thinking that to scale out this process, it would be helpful if you could provision the HCP Terraform workspace using Terraform. You can by using the HCP, the TFE provider. Let me show that to you. So here's the TFE provider. Let me go to the documentation. Yeah. So similar to any other provider, you've also got an HCP Terraform and a Terraform Enterprise provider, which you can use to provision resources in HCP Terraform. If you take a look, you have the TFE project resource type, right? Wherein you could specify which project you want. You could also specify the workspaces option. Here's a TFE workspace. And inside the TFE workspace, you could specify which repository you want it to be associated with. And here's the interesting part. The the auto destroy activity duration and the auto destroy. These are the two options that we have that would allow us to enable ephemeral resources. So yes, there is an option, and if you're thinking of scaling out and providing a solution across multiple teams to have the capability to for each of their teams to have the capability to create an ephemeral workspace, there is an option like that. So now let's do a quick recap of what we learned. I've noted down 5 critical points in our conversation today. Number one, we started off by describing a use case at hand, which is how to manage cloud resources that have outlived their primary use case. Remember the tangents use case, where we provisioned a subset of resources to test out the functionality. And once validated, we added that code to the actual use case. Number two, we talked about the cost and security implication of such resources. Remember the Gartner and the IBM studies from 2023. Number three, we explored ephemeral workspaces feature in HCP Terraform. Number four, we followed that by a short demo of how the state file in the workspace was decommissioned once the destroy condition was met. We had set it to an hour, and after which we verified on the AWS console that the resources were truly destroyed. Now, finally, number 5, where we checked out a few resources, talking about this one, to understand how to optimize cloud spend. And that brings us to the end of this talk. Let me bring up the links that you could check out. So with that, I leave you to learn more from the rest of the conference. If you have more questions, please share them and I'll try to answer.